people that belong to the Academy, where the Oscar comes from, will pick on a part that is a dynamic part, an outstanding part, which is usually the easiest kind to play. He never played dynamic parts because he wasn't a dynamic kind of person.
Fred MacMurray, famous for his friendly roles in family shows like My Three Sons, appeared to be the perfect American dad on screen. But in real life, he wasn't as nice as he seemed. He was so hard to work with that even famous actors didn't want to collaborate with him again.
I think Fred MacMurray was the total professional. He was the kind of actor who could fit very well in the studio system context, where the studio expected you to be versatile. I think Fred would have had some problems in the Hollywood of today. I think.
What was the real reason why some of Hollywood's biggest stars turned him down? Was it his behavior on set, a clash of personalities, or something more serious? Join us as we explore the surprising reasons why Fred MacMurray's co-stars chose not to work with him again. McMurray was known for being professional on screen.
He was at home being an actor. He didn't take it too seriously, though.
But his off-screen relationships were often tense. One of the biggest conflicts occurred during the filming of Double Indemnity in 1944.
I killed Dietrichson. Me, Walter Neff, insurance agent, 35 years old, unmarried, no visible scars.
Despite their on-screen chemistry, McMurray and his co-star Barbara Stanwyck had difficulty working together. During an intense scene where their characters planned a murder, the two actors clashed over how the lines should be delivered. McMurray thought Stanwyck was rushing her lines, while she believed he was overacting. The argument got so heated that McMurray walked off the set, causing a 3-hour delay. A few weeks later, while filming another scene, McMurray accidentally stepped on Stanwyck's foot, and after screaming in pain, she refused to film with him for 2 days. The studio, worried about delays, threatened to suspend both actors' contracts if they didn't resolve their differences. Despite these behind-the-scenes issues, their performances in Double Indemnity were highly praised, and the film became a huge success.
You don't know Keyes. Once he gets his teeth into something, he never lets go. He'll investigate you, he'll have you shadowed, he'll watch every minute from now on.
Their electric chemistry impressed critics, and the film premiered to wide acclaim. In later years, McMurray denied there were any issues on set, claiming in a 1970 interview that Stanwyck was a consummate professional, and any rumors of discord were exaggerated. However, crew members, including cinematographer John F. Seitz, suggested otherwise, recalling that he had to adjust the lighting to hide the discomfort between the two actors. McMurray also faced difficulties with director Billy Wilder on the set of The Apartment in 1960.
The apartment, I have an affair with the elevator girl in my building. I can't do it. I just cannot do it. Okay, Monday he did it.
McMurray played the role of Jeff Sheldrake, a morally complex character, but McMurray didn't like the cruelty of the character. During one scene, McMurray refused to say a line he thought was too harsh, leading to a 2-hour argument with Wilder. The dispute was resolved only when co-star Jack Lemmon stepped in and proposed a compromise. There was another disagreement when McMurray wanted his character to be more likable, while Wilder insisted he remain colder and more calculating. The tension became so intense that McMurray threatened to quit, forcing the studio to hold an emergency meeting to resolve the conflict.
Staying at the athletic club, and it's strictly stag, so if you don't mind.
Don't mind what?
You know the other key to your apartment. Well, when we had that little scare about Miss Kubelik,
Despite these challenges, McMurray's performance in The Apartment earned him a BAFTA nomination for Best Foreign Actor. Wilder later admitted that McMurray's resistance to the character made him more interesting, adding complexity to the role. McMurray's career was filled with conflicts. In 1947, while filming The Egg and I, he clashed with co-star Claudette Colbert over who should get top billing. The argument caused McMurray to walk off the set for 3 days until the studio agreed to give them equal billing.
Steve, maybe you'd better get yourself another lawyer.
Try it. 8 other officers have already turned it down.
During the Caine Mutiny in 1954, McMurray had a confrontation with Humphrey Bogart over how a scene should be filmed. Bogart accused McMurray of trying to steal the spotlight, and things got so tense that the director often had to separate the two actors. McMurray's difficulties extended to working with children as well. While filming The Absent-Minded Professor in 1961, McMurray refused to work with child actor Kevin Corcoran, calling him unprofessional. Disney executives had to step in to ensure the film was completed.
Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States.
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute.
There were also rumors about McMurray's behavior during the filming of Kisses for My President in 1964, when actress Polly Bergen claimed he made unwanted advances toward her. When she rejected him, he reportedly became hostile, leading to tensions on set and causing several scenes to be reshot. Despite these stories, some of his co-stars defended McMurray.
"You're Fred MacMurray, aren't you?" And he said yes. He was ready to sign the autograph, and she said, "You know, I've always loved you in all those Disney pictures. And because of that great reputation, I took my daughter to see the apartment. Shame on you. Now I just hate you." And she hit him with her pocketbook.
Jack Lemmon admitted that McMurray could be difficult, but always remained professional when the camera rolled. As McMurray got older, his reputation as a difficult actor grew.
I felt that he knew precisely what he was doing, but he was injecting a great deal of his own persona into the part, and that was the correct thing to do, and it certainly was what Billy wanted, because he wanted him to be attractive.
However, it wasn't due to diva-like behavior, but rather his strict working method, which became known as the McMurray method. On My Three Sons, this meant that McMurray would film all his scenes at once, sometimes leaving other actors to perform with stand-ins or pretend he was there when he wasn't. This caused odd situations, such as when guest stars had to film all their scenes with McMurray in one day, even though those scenes were meant for different episodes. Despite these challenges, McMurray's talent kept him working. But by the end of My Three Sons in 1972, he found it harder to secure roles. His last major film was The Swarm in 1978, where all his scenes were filmed in 1 week to fit his schedule. McMurray admitted in a 1978 interview that he wasn't the easiest person to work with, but he always delivered. "Isn't that what really matters?" he said. Was Fred MacMurray's rise to fame an easy journey? Let's take a closer look and see. Fred's rise to fame. Fred MacMurray's journey to fame was full of interesting twists and turns. He started with his one and only hit song, All I Want Is Just One Girl. His voice and charm stood out, but his music career didn't take off as he'd hoped. Instead, Fred explored other creative outlets, like taking night classes to become a newspaper cartoonist, although that didn't work out either. However, it showed how driven and imaginative he was. While playing in a band called the California Collegians, Fred's striking good looks caught the attention of a talent scout. Interestingly, it wasn't his musical skills that impressed the scout, but his natural charisma and presence. This led to a screen test at Paramount Pictures, which ultimately opened the door to acting. Before becoming a star, Fred appeared in small, uncredited roles in movies. His first was in Girls Gone Wild in 1929. Although these early roles weren't glamorous, they gave him a chance to learn about filmmaking. One particularly fun moment came when his band appeared in a film called Wild Company, blending both his music and acting worlds. Fred's first credited film role came in 1935 with Grand Old Girl. While it was a small part, it was an important step in his career. Later that year, Fred had his big break with The Gilded Lily, where he starred alongside the already famous Claudette Colbert. The movie, released on January 25, 1935, was a huge success, changing Fred's life overnight. Fred played Peter Dawes, a reporter caught in a love triangle with Claudette's character, and a rich Englishman played by Ray Milland. Audiences loved the chemistry between Fred and Claudette, leading to 6 more movies together over the next 10 years. The Gilded Lily earned over $1.5 million, a massive sum for the time, and critics praised Fred's charming and natural performance. Interestingly, Fred almost didn't get the role. It was initially offered to Cary Grant, but due to a scheduling conflict, Fred was given the opportunity, a twist of luck that would shape his career. Just 1 week after The Gilded Lily was released, Paramount Pictures signed Fred to a 7-year contract. He started at $350 a week, with raises each year. By the early 1940s, he was one of Hollywood's highest-paid stars. His popularity skyrocketed, especially in romantic comedies, where audiences loved his friendly personality, good looks, and comedic timing. In 1935 alone, he starred in 7 films, with one of the highlights being Hands Across the Table, where he worked with Carole Lombard. The film was released on October 18, 1935, and became a big hit, earning over $1.3 million. Critics loved it, and Fred's career continued to climb. By 1936, Fred was making $4,000 a week, which is equivalent to around $75,000 today. His fans adored him so much that he received around 1,000 fan letters every week. However, Fred's success in romantic comedies didn't come without challenges. Carole Lombard, known for her humor, helped him loosen up on set, even joking that she would sit on his chest and threaten to pluck his eyebrows unless he got funnier. Taking this advice to heart, Fred worked hard to improve his comedic skills, which paid off in his many successful roles. Fred's success also stemmed from working with incredible actresses like Carole Lombard. Together, they made 4 films, starting with The Princess Comes Across in 1936, followed by Swing High, Swing Low in 1937, and True Confession later that year. Their chemistry was undeniable, and all of these films were major hits. For example, Swing High, Swing Low became Paramount's most successful film of 1937, earning $1.9 million. In that film, Fred played a musician, showing his ability to handle both comedic and dramatic scenes. Their final movie together, True Confession, came out on December 24, 1937, and earned $1.4 million. By then, Fred had become a master of comedy, keeping up with Carole's fast-paced humor. Despite their excellent working relationship, they were never romantically involved. In fact, it was Carole who introduced Fred to his first wife, Lillian Lamont, at a party in 1936. Fred and Lillian married later that year on June 20th and remained together until Lillian passed away in 1953. McMurray's career turning point. McMurray's life took a huge turn when he was offered the role in Double Indemnity. At first, he didn't want to take the part of Walter Neff. On February 16, 1943, director Billy Wilder handed him the script, and McMurray was stunned. At 34, he was known as Hollywood's charming nice guy, who was famous for his roles in light comedies and musicals. His most recent film, Standing Room Only, 1944, had been a major success, making over $2.5 million and solidifying his place as Paramount's top male star. The idea of playing a crooked, adulterous insurance salesman seemed like a huge gamble. McMurray feared the role would ruin his career because of the strict movie codes at the time, which meant that criminals had to be punished in films. He worried the audience would reject him in such a dark, morally questionable role. In a 1972 interview, McMurray admitted he was so upset by the idea that he threw the script across the room and told Wilder, "You're trying to kill my career." McMurray also doubted his acting abilities. He had never received formal training and had started his career as a saxophone player in vaudeville. He had relied on his charm to make a name for himself, not dramatic skills. The character of Walter Neff was a far cry from anything he had ever done. Complicated, morally ambiguous, and far from the clean-cut roles he was used to. McMurray even told Wilder, "I'm a saxophone player. I do comedy with Claudette Colbert. I don't know how to play this kind of character." Throughout filming, McMurray's insecurities showed. After every take, he asked Wilder, "Was that okay? Did I get it right?" However, Wilder was determined to cast him. Despite McMurray's rejection, Wilder spent 6 weeks trying to change his mind. He reached out to other actors, including James Cagney, Gregory Peck, and even George Raft, who was known for playing gangsters, but none of them accepted the role. Wilder didn't give up. He tracked McMurray down at lunch, at his home, and even followed him to the golf course. On March 27, 1943, Wilder caught McMurray in a studio parking lot and spent 3 hours explaining his vision for the film. Wilder believed that McMurray's nice guy image would make the role even more shocking. He told McMurray that the part could win him an Oscar, and hinted that other actors were interested. Wilder had already cast Barbara Stanwyck as Phyllis, and even called McMurray to encourage him. Finally, after a private screening of Wilder's previous film, 5 Graves to Cairo, McMurray agreed. On April 5, 1943, he signed the contract, ending Wilder's 49-day campaign. When Double Indemnity premiered on July 3, 1944, McMurray's transformation amazed audiences. Critics were blown away by his portrayal of the charming but corrupt insurance salesman turned murderer. The New York Times called it a revelation, and Variety praised his ability to make evil feel disturbingly ordinary. The film was a huge success, earning $5.7 million at the box office and receiving 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Although McMurray didn't receive an Oscar nomination, his performance became the film's standout. Even James M. Cain, who wrote the original novel, praised McMurray's portrayal, calling it terrific and memorable. The success of Double Indemnity changed McMurray's career forever. Before the film, he was always cast as the wholesome good guy. Afterward, he began receiving offers for darker roles. Between 1944 and 1949, he starred in 7 film noirs, including Murder, He Says, and Pushover. Fans were shocked by his new image, with mixed reactions pouring in through letters. Some criticized him for playing such dark characters, while others admired his versatility as an actor. McMurray's salary skyrocketed, and he gained more creative control over his work. Fred MacMurray's career took a major turn on February 23, 1949, when he signed a contract with Universal Pictures. He was eager to break free from the typecasting that kept him playing the same roles. In 1950, he starred in a Western comedy, Never a Dull Moment, where he portrayed a performer struggling to adapt to life on a ranch. The film received mixed reviews. Some thought it tried too hard to be funny. But Fred wasn't discouraged. He continued pushing himself with new roles. In 1951, he took on Kind Lady, a more serious film, where he played Pete Sandage. While the movie didn't make a big splash, it showed audiences that Fred had the depth to handle dramatic roles. The following year, in 1952, he took on a completely different challenge with Fair Wind to Java, an adventure film. Released in 1953, Fred played a tough sea captain, far from his usual light-hearted characters. Critics weren't sure he was the best fit for the role, but the film marked a key step in his transition to more serious acting. Fred's big break came in 1954, with one of his most iconic roles in The Caine Mutiny, where he played Lieutenant Tom Keffer, a character who quietly manipulates others into rebelling against an unstable captain. The film, which also starred Humphrey Bogart, was a massive success, grossing over $21 million worldwide. Fred's performance, particularly in a pivotal court scene, impressed critics and solidified his ability to play complex characters. In 1960, Fred took another bold step with The Apartment, directed by Billy Wilder. He played Jeff Sheldrake, a married boss who uses his position to have an affair. It was a shocking departure from his usual nice guy roles, and audiences were both surprised and impressed by his cold, calculating performance. The film went on to win 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and further proved that Fred was capable of tackling darker, more serious roles. Later in the 1950s, Fred shifted gears once again, this time teaming up with Disney. On March 19, 1959, Disney released The Shaggy Dog, where Fred played a father dealing with the hilarious chaos of his son transforming into a magical sheepdog. The film became a surprise hit, outperforming some of the year's biggest blockbusters, and kicked off a successful run of Disney films for Fred. In 1961, he starred in The Absent-Minded Professor, playing a quirky inventor who creates flubber, a gravity-defying substance. The film was another success, earning a sequel called Son of Flubber in 1963. Fred continued his work with Disney, appearing in Bon Voyage in 1962 and Follow Me, Boys, in 1966, where he played a scoutmaster in a small town. Follow Me, Boys was particularly special because it was the last film that Walt Disney personally worked on before his passing. Fred's Disney films helped him gain popularity with families and showed that he could entertain audiences in a completely new way. But could that be the reason behind him switching to TV shows? Let's take a closer look. Fred's transition to television to show. In 1960, Fred became a television star with the show My Three Sons. The series, about a widowed father raising 3 boys with the help of his father-in-law, was one of the first to focus on a single father. It was an immediate hit, ranking 13th in the Nielsen ratings during its first season. Over its 12-year run, My Three Sons underwent many changes, including a switch from ABC to CBS in 1965 and the addition of new characters. However, Fred remained the constant star, appearing in all 380 episodes and securing his legacy as a television icon. When Fred was approached in 1960 to play Steve Douglas, the character in My Three Sons, he was already a well-known movie star and wasn't eager to commit to the long hours of a weekly TV show. To solve this, he created a unique arrangement known as the McMurray method. His contract stipulated that he would work only 65 days a year, divided into 2 blocks, 40 days in the spring and 25 days in the fall. This meant that the production team had to shoot all his scenes for the entire season during these periods. This method required careful planning and a lot of effort from the entire cast and crew, as they had to film scenes out of order, with all the kitchen scenes shot together, followed by the living room scenes, and so on. It also meant the crew had to ensure consistency, even if scenes from the same episode were filmed months apart. For his efforts, Fred earned $150,000 per season. This schedule gave him plenty of time to enjoy his hobbies, especially golf. Fred's unique approach became famous, and other stars like Henry Fonda on The Smith Family later negotiated similar deals. What was Fred MacMurray's early beginning like? Let's find out. Fred MacMurray's early life. Fred MacMurray was born on August 30th, 1908 in Kankakee, Illinois. But his birth was a bit of a surprise. His father, Frederick, was a concert violinist performing in the town when Fred's mother, Mita, unexpectedly went into labor. Although Fred was born in Illinois, his family's true home was in Wisconsin, where both of his parents had grown up. This Midwestern connection would later influence Fred's down-to-earth and approachable image as an adult. When Fred was just 2 years old, his family moved to Madison, Wisconsin, where he would grow up. His early years were filled with music, thanks to his father's career as a violinist. By the time Fred was 5, he was already learning to play the violin himself. However, life wasn't always easy for him. His parents separated when he was very young, and Fred moved back to Wisconsin with his mother. Despite the challenges they faced and the lack of money, his mother worked hard to make sure they were taken care of. They eventually settled in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, which was also Mita's hometown. Fred developed a deep love for Beaver Dam, and he always remembered it fondly. In fact, he even paid tribute to it in his later films, such as in Pardon My Past, where his character dreams of starting a mink farm in the town. Fred was a standout student and athlete in high school at Beaver Dam High. He excelled in his studies and earned 10 varsity letters in sports, showing his natural talent and determination. He graduated at just 16 years old, a sign of his early promise. Music continued to play a central role in his life. Fred played in a local band and worked at a PE canning factory to save enough money to buy a saxophone. With that saxophone, he formed his first band, the Max Melody Boys, and began performing locally. Despite his talent, Fred struggled with stage fright, something that would challenge him throughout his career. Fred went on to attend Carroll College in Wisconsin on a sports scholarship. He worked tirelessly to balance his studies, football, and performing in bands to support himself. But Fred had bigger dreams. In the late 1920s, he left Wisconsin behind and set off for Hollywood. His goal wasn't acting just yet, he wanted to make it as a musician. At 20 years old, Fred arrived in Los Angeles, saxophone in hand, hoping for a shot at success. Life in Hollywood wasn't easy, and Fred had to take odd jobs, including selling sheet music at a store near the famous Grauman's Chinese Theater, where his handprints would one day be immortalized. But things began to change for Fred when he joined the Gus Arnheim Orchestra, a well-known band that performed at the Coconut Grove nightclub in 1930. This was the breakthrough Fred had been waiting for in the music world. What do you think about the surprising reason why Fred MacMurray's co-stars decided not to work with him anymore? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.